All right. There we go. So we're live right now.
Yes. Because we weren't talking, Atla.
Oh,
We were waiting for you.
we were. Was everyone waiting for me? Wow. I was just
No.
I was just getting confirmation that we were live. Okay, so we're live right now. Amazing, incredible. This is off to a great start. So hello everyone. Welcome to the next Hiveworks stream. We're doing a little casual chat thing. We usually do at Hiveworks when we do these streams. We do very kind of involved and maybe even heavy topics about fantasy and editing and stuff. And this time we're actually gonna switch gears a little bit and we have today myself. My name's Atla Hrafney. I'm one of the editors at Hive, and with me is the lovely Taylor Robin, or Corny. Say hello, Corny.
Hello.
Wonderful. And we also have Kate Ashwin, author of Widdershins. Say hello, Kate.
Hi.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So what we're just going to be doing today is we're just going to be kind of introducing both your comics and kind of introducing some of the comics that you recommend to others that you kind of enjoy that are also at Hiveworks, and kind of chatting about them and what you like about them and how they might influence you and influence your works. And it's just going to be kind of a very casual kind of stream. We're not going to be going into too deep things, hopefully. So how about we introduce Corny? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in your comic.
Well, my comic is Never Satisfied. It's about these who are magic. They have familiars, and they've all been competing to get this one job, like the biggest magic job they can get. And it's just about how they learn to be people at each other, basically.
Mm-hmm. Say it in a nutshell, like very kind of competing, but also like trying to learn to be human, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
And
don't be bad at each other. Unfortunately, they're very bad at that.
They're all gremlins, unfortunately.
Just wretched awful children.
So you use he, him pronouns, just for
I
the
do.
record. Yeah, and I
I'm
use
boy.
she, her. Our boy. And next up we have Kate. You do Widdershins. Tell us a little bit about your whole shindig.
Yeah, sure. So, Widdershins is a series of Victorian-era adventure stories. They're kind of Indiana Jones-style adventures, but with wizards, because everything's better when you add wizards.
And confirm.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. And they're basically like separate but quite interconnected stories following bounty hunters and magicians and all sorts of stuff. Basically, it's the fun yarns is what I go for. And as you said, my name's Kate, and I go by she and her. So.
Okay, wonderful. So, tell me a little bit. I'm gonna start just with Corny. So, what basically what we're gonna be doing for the format of this is you're just gonna kind of introduce a comic that you would recommend to readers, and I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions. Kate's gonna interject, maybe you chat a little bit, like stuff like that. So what comic would you actually recommend to people who enjoy some Hiveworks stuff?
I guess we can start with Paranatural, because I feel like.
Go on then.
Yes, I took it. Because Paranatural is like, it's very similar to Never Satisfied, very unintentionally, but
the magic teens with color-coded super magics.
I started reading Paranatural like a year into working on Never Satisfied.
I know. Yeah, you can. I fully believe you. It's just the coincidences were like, oh, I was reading it. I was like, wow, feels like there is a lot of this and Never Satisfied actually, like in a good
Yeah,
way, obviously.
like
Mhm.
don't even get me started on Isabella and Anna both being red magic users, both Latina, and both losing a spider traumatically.
God, that's true. Oh my God, I didn't
I
even
know.
realize.
I should be sued.
And it's like these comics both started around what, like 2011, 2012, like kind of during that peak time of like being inspired by like late 90s like kind of action comics or like anime of that time. So it definitely is understandable that you would be kind of making slightly similar stories because you're probably taking like inspiration from similar forms of media, you know?
Yeah, probably. Uh, I need to turn off push talk. It's making me way too.
Like, should I be talking about this? Is this something that is actually relevant to the discussion? Just like existential crisis
Probably.
while me and Kate are talking.
Is it worth pushing the button to open my mouth?
Like a new like a new Netflix horror movie.
Uh,
Um, I will say I literally just read Paranatural today, on Corny's recommendation, and it is phenomenal. If you haven't read Paranatural, you should. It's about a group of kids basically with superpowers and there are
ghosts,
ghosts and spirits
spirits.
and very, very flawed teachers. Um, and it's extremely worth a read.
Mhm.
It's got like some of the funniest, both just character expressions, like the way that the people are drawn, some of the funniest
Yeah,
writing, like of anything I've ever read.
I'm
Like you got
fully.
puns, you got character humor, you got slapstick, like it's the whole package.
It won me over when one character said something about pacifist, and then someone said, "I'll pacifist through your
Pacifists.
face," and I was just like, "Okay, yeah, I like this comic."
Yeah, the wordplay is probably my favorite kind of the comedy.
Mhm.
Yeah, the faces are also incredible. Like, my God, he just super goes for it with the facial expressions.
They them for Zach.
Oh, they. I'm sorry.
It's
That
okay.
was fun. Yeah. I should while we're doing this, I should go find the pronouns of all the authors. But yeah, it's very because I see everyone because I know a couple of people because when Paranatural was starting, I was still in college and I know people who were still fans of Paranatural who kind of were in that like Homestuck crowd and needed like more stuff to satisfy that like comedy itch. And whenever I see
Satisfying.
satisfy, um, and whenever I see people like actually make like appreciation posts or like talk about it, it always centers around the humor. Like always the kind of like expressions and the like artistic skill. Like even though people do care about the characters, the overall story isn't what like really draws people in. It's the humor itself.
I
I
mean,
think it's because partly we don't entirely know the full story yet. Like it's still ramping
yeah,
up into the main conflict.
yeah, there's an
And
awful
comedy
lot
is
of
such an easy thing to
mysteries.
sell.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
It's been how when did it start? It started like 2012 or so, right?
It says 2011 on the very first.
Is that like the magic year? What happened in 2011 that so many people started comics?
When did
It,
Homestuck end?
um, it,
It
it
ended
it's
2016, but that wasn't it. But I think that's when it was really popular.
yeah,
Mm,
it's really I think it's really interesting because the mystery because I kind of fell off the wagon after I left college for like a lot of the webcomics that I was reading at the time. So I was like, giving myself time to read it fully back to back. So it's really interesting for me to know that in the about 5 years since I left, the story is still ramping up. And like it still kind of has that mystery angle. Like 9 years into it, you know?
That almost sounds like a criticism, but that's just webcomics, baby.
Yeah, that no, that but
Yeah.
that like it's not necessarily a criticism. I think it's just really I think it's really interesting, and also that takes an enormous amount of patience from the author of not just like completely tipping their hand in 9 years, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like pacing a mystery is the trickiest thing. It really is. Like just being able to know when to let out enough information to keep, but keep the mystery there so people are still interested. But you also have to answer questions at the same time as asking them because otherwise it's
Mhm.
and I think they definitely do that with Paranatural.
Yeah, because no
Yeah,
matter what, you're constantly always still interested in what's gonna happen on the next page. Because
Oh
every page
yeah.
is funny. Like, I don't think
yeah,
there's a single page that doesn't have either a joke or, like, just a good memorable moment on it.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
They're so dense with content.
I can't believe how dense
absolutely.
the pages are. That was sorry, that's definitely what really hit me as I was flipping through was sometime, I think, like, at the start of the 5th chapter, their page density really, really ramps up, and they start doing some really clever stuff with the page layouts.
Yeah. And
Uh
it's also yeah, sorry, go ahead, kid.
Oh, I was just gonna say there's a point where they they literally use like the character's lunch tray as like
Oh, yeah, that
the
page is so
setup for the
good.
panels. So
Oh, I
good.
wonder if I can find it and link it in the chat 'cause people gotta see it.
I
Yeah.
think I can.
When
I'm
did
not
that
far off
happen?
it.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting because like the mystery element is something that I think about a little bit because if you've got I think the comedy is what keeps also people hooked because like it's the thing that's the immediate like reward when you're reading it. It's very funny and it's keeping you engaged at all times. It's common while setting up like a greater mystery, you know?
And it's so quotable.
Oh, very. I see panels of it out of context like all the time.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if there's a paranatural out of context like Twitter account.
I can confirm for a fact there is one on
Th-
Tumblr.
Oh, there we
Wonderful.
go. Um and it's also like a much finer I wanted to say real quick, it's a much finer balance because like it's a web comic. You know, like if you've got a print comic, you can kind of you can wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then release the next part of the mystery and you can like spin it in a very intentional way. But in web comics, you're going week by week or month by month and you don't always have that like luxury. So you have to keep people entertained like on the spot week by week, you know?
Yeah, the sort of serialized nature of webcomics is always such a weird one.
It's on the
It's a
page.
really yeah, sort of a oh, you found it good. Link it.
Yeah, I just popped it in
Um,
the Twitch chat.
but yeah, the way you have to as a webcomic person, you have to keep people, as you say, hooked page to page, but you also probably you're making this a print too. So you have to make something that reads well in in a book format and in a day by day um y- sort of updating format, and also for people who are archive binging and such. It's a strange balance.
Yeah, and to jump to another one of the comics we wanted to talk about today, uh, one of the things I like about Sakana and Mad Rupert, who does it, is that she has these "How do I make Sakana" like little things in between chapters sometimes. And one of the things that she said and recommends for when you're writing a webcomic is to always have some kind of punchline at the end of
Yeah.
the strip. And that's something that totally stuck with me after I read it. And that's something I try to do with my comic where I draw my pages in batches of two. I try to, whenever I can, make something interesting happen on the Friday page.
That's smart.
Mhm. And that
God, I'm
especially work
hungry.
it especially works well for, like, the more, like, the settings, like, paranatural and the settings like Sakana. Like, Sakana is
It's very
made to be
different
like
from
a
Paranatural, but very similar still.
yeah, like, it's still a gag a day, like, sort of thing. Um, let me see, Taylor, why don't you tell us what Sakana is? What's it about?
Sakana is a black and white comic set in Japan at the, I want to say, Tsukiji Fish Market. Thank God she had it written down right there in Tokyo, which sadly doesn't exist anymore.
Oh
But
yeah, it went like
yeah,
just last year or something, didn't it?
yeah, and it was for the Olympics, which is just
Oh
huge
no.
bummer. But anyway, it's about these brothers that work at the fish market. One of them is in love with the girl that works across in the fish market, and it's just this comedy about of errors of trying to like learn who she is, try to date her, and all the people around them in the fish market having similar problems. There's a lot. It's hard to
Mhm.
condense into an elevator pitch.
It's a very
But
slice of
that's
life
kind
kind
of
of
Yes, it's a
romance.
slice of life romantic
yeah.
comedy.
It like, when I'm just kinda, like, looking through it right now, it almost reminds me a little bit of, like, the complexity and yet simplicity of, like, Ranma Half, and, like, how the baseline pitch is pretty simple, and then they just keep sort of building, and then building on top, and then building on top until it becomes impossible to really describe what actually happens, like, week by week, you know?
I mean, yeah, that's fair to say.
Web comics and manga have that in common, I feel.
Yeah.
They're just
Um,
very slow.
I th
yeah,
I
absolutely.
I think the thing that kinda drew me to, I keep calling it Sakana in my head because I'm just not good at
I don't
speaking.
know how it's pronounced correctly.
It's probably Sakana. But, the thing that really drew me to it originally was that inking.
Yeah, the
Oh my
inking is still
god.
good.
Out of this world inking.
It's I feel like it's very hard to sell a webcomic these days that's black and white,
Oh,
but
yeah.
boy howdy,
I
does Sakana.
know.
I'm gonna say Sakana. Do it.
Fair enough. But yeah, no, like her inking was just immediately like, "Oh my god, this is gorgeous."
So good.
Um,
Is it let me see here. Is it physical or is it digital? Like, how is she
Physical, I
It's by hand.
believe. Yeah, it's
yeah.
like
I mean, all
inked
drawing is by hand, but yes, it's on paper.
pen and
Mhm.
ink, which is like,
Yeah,
oh
and
my god. I
And
could
like the
not live without the
lettering is all by
undoodle.
hand
Oh,
on
she does a
ooh.
paper.
lot with she does a lot with the lettering as
The
well.
lettering is very impressive. I mean, she does it professionally too. Like, I think she letters comics professionally.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Honestly, you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's definitely one of those, like, she's really, really invested in just making sort of her own little world, which I can really, really appreciate. Like, when you look at, like, the characters and the way that she makes them emote, and it has kind of a little bit that it shares with, that it shares with Paranatural, in that the greatest strengths are kind of like the way that she tells the jokes rather than like purely the jokes themselves, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Like a character's facial expression in either of those comics can absolutely
It adds
make
so
a
much.
page so much.
Mhm.
And sort of not to make it just all about the humor as well. The drama in Sakana is absolutely it's got me hooked. I'm desperate to know the outcome of this date. It's killing me. Tell me what happened.
I want Yudai and Taisei to be happy.
I want it so much.
They'll be so cute together.
I know.
Ah, that's really cute.
And Jira,
I
I guess.
You know,
and
the
so
main character, I
The straight
suppose.
people.
so the kind of like the thing that people would enjoy about it is kind of the ship element of it, and like the comedy, and kind of like drama itself and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And just you fall in love with these characters because they're so fleshed out. They're such real, consistent people. Like you
Oh,
know them.
absolutely.
You get to know them and you care about them.
Mhm.
They do a lot of good, like they have a lot of good conversations, a lot of if you're really into people like opening up and having heartfelt conversations while making faces and like teasing each other a little bit, it's that's exactly what I love.
It's really good for
So
that.
I
Yeah,
yeah, it
honestly,
really
I
is.
periodically go back to reread the scene, which I'm not going to spoil, but where Yudai gets a text or he sent a
Ooh,
text, and that scene
that's
with
so
Jiro is just
good.
it's so good.
Yeah, I was thinking of that exact scene actually.
It's the scene. It's Primo Comics Works.
It really is.
Comics Works,
It's
Comic
just
Work,
comics
So
works.
it's got a
Comics
couple.
Works,
So it's
like
got a
Times
couple of.
Works.
So it's got a couple of like emotional kind of clinchers that people will also get like heavily invested in. It's not just
Oh, absolutely.
like
Yeah, it's not just comedy.
yeah. Okay, that's good to know. How do you guys feel that the work has influenced you, like in terms of being storytellers? Like you mentioned, Corny, you mentioned before the how to sakana was like a big is there
Yeah, like just
periodically.
the way that she approaches writing for a webcomic as making sure something is always happening, either on every page or in my case, every week. So you keep people turning the page basically while also maintaining consistency for a archival reader. I found that to be very useful advice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
What about
did a
you, Kate?
well, I did a lot of looking at the art actually recently, because I'm bad at jaw lines. She's great at them, so I
That's
did
so
experiment.
specific, but absolutely true about her jaw lines.
Yeah, I don't. I find certain. I don't know. I'm only good at drawing one specific jawline, basically. And she has a lot of variation in her character faces. That it just comes through immediately. Like everyone is so recognizable. You're never going to mix up a character,
Yeah,
and that's
Mhm.
it's definitely something I keep looking at and trying to pull apart. Like, all right, how'd she do this? Okay, can how can I use this?
I can tell you guys for free that you know the character Sango.
Mhm.
I looked directly at her when I was designing Philomena in like 2014, and I feel like once I tell you, it's really obvious.
She did remind me of Philomena, actually. Alright, yeah,
Yeah, she's
that's theory
basically right where I
confirmed.
got her.
Uh, Speaking of, can we talk about Never Satisfied? Can we do
I would
that?
love to be talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna mention like one last thing about Sakana before we move
Go
on
for it.
to Taylor's lovely comic.
Aw.
Um, we were talking before the stream started about how I was looking at it, and I was like, oh man, like is this? It's set in Japan. It's very like in like a very cultural specific thing in Japan, and I was like, is does are Japanese people like enjoying this and stuff like that? And I contacted Mad, the author, like before this panel to get some a little bit more information about it. And apparently, there's just a bunch of like fan comics that they made, and she actually sent me a photo. If Kevster, if you could, Kevin, our lovely
DJ.
tech DJ, if you could send that photo I sent in the Slack, it's like there's just massive collection of like fan art and like and just like thank you notes and stuff like that. This wasn't even I sent one picture. There's a bunch more. It was crazy, and so it really shows that there's a lot of love in Sakana to like kind of be not authentic, but like to be honest and to be like kind of trying really hard to make this like a good
Oh
story with you.
yeah. Mad
Yeah,
absolutely has done her research. Like she's been to the fish market several times, or like, well, I don't want to say exactly how many times she's been, but I know she's been there at least once.
yeah.
But like she's done a ton of research on it.
I think it helps that it's
Uh,
such a lovable comic as well, honestly. Like, it's just
Yeah,
a
like it's inoffensive.
yeah,
I
you
mean, I
can
don't know if that's exactly the word I want, but like you can't hate it. There's nothing wrong with it.
yeah, exactly. Like, because there's always that discussion of there's always that discussion of like cultural appropriation and appreciation. But I think a good barometer is how much fan art from the country that you're talking about are you getting? Like, I think that's a
Yeah.
and if you've got enough to fill a table, then you're probably on a decent path.
God, I would love to read those Toshinshis.
I know, I'm looking at them now like, what's in there?"
Hmm.
I
One of
I
those says
wonder.
Yeah.
R18.
Oh, does it?
Uh-oh.
We're not.
It sure
w-
does.
We're not allowed to talk about that on air. But like, I would love to flip through all of them and be like, wow, these people like love these characters and want to see them happy and mad. Fucking update it and make them happy so all that we can see more fan art.
I think she
But
seems to be closing in on, like, a final volume.
Yeah, she recently had a Kickstarter for I want to say volume 3,
Mm,
mhm,
but she's just been very busy with various projects going on all at the same time.
yeah.
So it's
I
been a bit.
I think it
yeah.
said, it seemed to be saying that she was working towards a final volume for, like, to wrap it up. Which if so, that's fantastic, honestly. I like it when a
Mhm.
story comes to an end, you know?
Yeah, it's like the dream for webcomics to end like an ending. And Kate, you are the only person I know who has lived
Really?
that dream.
I'm the only one you know who's finished one.
I think.
Oh gosh.
I'm trying to think of webcomics I've read that are finished, period.
Well,
I'm not
the
sure.
the key to that is to start in 2003.
Ugh.
Not really applicable advice, I'm
Kate, I'm
afraid.
gonna hurt you. I was in 3rd grade.
No, I
Yeah,
don't.
no, I was.
Ugh.
I was.
I don't even know what 3rd grade is, and that sounds just super young.
uh,
It,
I would
it
have been 6 plus 3 is 9 years old.
Okay,
I
I'm
would
just
have
gonna
been
crumble into dust now.
I would have been a little bit younger than Corny at the time.
Oh
Oh my gosh, you're
Uh,
no.
younger than me.
I was in
yeah.
university.
Grandma.
Oh no.
But
Old grandma internet.
so speaking of horrible pressure, um, Kate, tell me what you like about Never Satisfied while the author is on live stream, recorded live stream with us.
I
Kate,
okay.
speak to me.
I will. I love your teens. I love how awful they are to each other, how believably awful. It's absolutely wonderful like watching them like learn things and grow. It's been it's such a good trip.
Mhm. Can you
Thanks.
that's such an author like how to take the author compliment. Thanks. Yeah. But Kate, for those, can you do me a big favor and describe to me the plot for those that are just joining us and maybe didn't catch what Corny's explanation of the comic. What's the
Good
plot of the
luck.
comic?
I could
uh
barely do it.
it's a sort of ooh yeah it's sorry, I've got an elevator pitch for my own comic, but like it's always tricky to come up with one for
Right?
somebody
It's like impossible.
else's.
Here,
Yeah.
I'll do it for you. It's a shonen tournament arc, but it ends.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, so it's about a bunch of like young magicians all competing for a high ranking position. But mostly it's about the characters' sort of interpersonal relationships. I mean, there's also, you know, big magic things happening too, but really it's all about the interactions between them. That's
Being mean to each other, having crushes on each other,
that's it. That's it.
sucking all the magic out of each other. Literally, not in a weird way.
But yeah, it's largely the relationships between the characters that is what really interests me with Never Satisfied. Um, there was a particular scene where Philomena was accidentally being very, very rude to Lucy, and that just it was very good.
And and who is Philomena and who is Lucy? I'm sorry. I'm just gonna. This is my fun time now. I'm just gonna pressure you into
I
into
know who they
describing.
are. Pick me, pick me.
Go.
All right, Courtney. Do you wanna explain who these two are?
I was kidding, but yes. Lucy is the main character. They're a non-binary brat, as it were. They entered the competition basically just to prove to people that they're actually worth anything
Hmm.
because they have a really bad, mean teacher.
And then
And
Okay.
then,
realized like 3 seconds in that they'd made a terrible mistake.
yup, because they are magicless. It's been a couple years since the reveal. I'll just tell y'all. They can't do it. They've been faking their way through it, and they learned the hard way that that's not a great idea. And then there's Philomena, who is not great at magic, but she's very rich and very sweet, and everybody likes her, but she's kind of dumb in that way of understanding people that are not rich and loved by everybody.
Yeah, that's the scene I was talking about. She's very much kind of she's got the privilege that she has no idea she has, and she's very accidentally kind of throwing it right in Lucy's face and completely not understanding why they're getting progressively madder and madder at her.
Yeah, I
And
like that scene a lot too.
it was really good, and it kinda it hit me because I was that dumb teen. I'm sure I've done that 100 times without realizing, and, like, it was just a bit of a gut punch to see it, like, laid out, like, "Oh, no, I've been Philomena here."
I think we've all been Philomena. The secret to writing terrible teens is making them all terrible in the ways you've been terrible.
They're very, very believably terrible, and the everything going on with the various crushes going back and forth, and, the way it all ties into also, this actual major plot point with magic overwhelming people.
Turning them into monsters.
Yeah, it's all really, really good stuff, and there's a big central mystery with Lucy's identity and such to be dug into, um, and the art is fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, you.
A $1. Thanks.
An
But
avocado.
was it an avocado?
It was an avocado.
It was that meme was I thought it was like $5 or whatever.
No, he opens up a present. It's an avocado.
But so Kate, how do you feel that They're Satisfied has like influenced your own work? Like what lessons have you taken from it?
I think I'm not great at like adding a lot of this sounds harsh. I'm not good at adding flaws to my characters in like a really interesting way. And I think Connie, you're really good at that. So it's something I have been sort of ruminating on is like just layering a few more flaws onto these fools.
How can I make my characters worse?
Essentially. Well, there's a lot of stories are pretty bad at having, a main character who is hero and has just no, they don't really make any mistakes, and they don't really do anything wrong, and they just sort of float through the plot.
Hmm.
Who would you say is the main character of Widdershins? It's a total tangent, but now I'm just wondering
I,
who is the one,
I don't
if at all.
think there really is one.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe
Well,
Harry.
yeah, I would agree with Harry if anybody.
well on
I
that
love Harry.
well on that note, Corny, give us the elevator pitch for Widdershins.
Okay, Widdershins. Oh man, I just flipped way back to the beginning.
Oh no, don't look at the
I know. I was like, oh boy.
beginning.
Okay, you've come so far.
You are far. You look at Bloomin' Darken, which was the first comic I did, but don't
Yeah, I
look at
haven't read
Darken because yikes.
Wasn't Darkin like a D&D based thing?
Yeah.
Mm, we all have one of those. Anyway, Widdershins is, as Kate said earlier, a Victorian fantasy where you've got an ensemble cast and you've got these magic, like you've got magic circles, magic. I feel like you have an in-universe term that I want to use for the things that they summon.
Or just spirits.
Spirits. That'll do. Where the magic system about Widdershins is what I love the most, and that's what I want to talk about.
Hey.
Where the magic is based on like human emotions and concepts and like taking them, enhancing them, putting them into things. And I love the way that you use this magic system you've set up to tell all these different stories with different like themes and morals and ideas, which
Hey.
is I love that. And I love that in fiction, which is hugely against everything I talked about in the last panel I did. I don't know if you heard or watched that one where I basically talked about how magic world building and all that is just anathema to me when I do it for myself.
Oh no,
But I love reading stuff with it.
I get the you know, I get the sentiment in the sort of like you don't want to lay down too many rules kind of thing. Like you always bring up that was it Philip Pullman quote where somebody asked like a complex question about how
I think it was
demons
like
work.
how do demons like come to exist? Like how are they born? He was like, don't ask me that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think like not overthinking it is a pretty big thing, really. But you know,
I
I think
hate to think.
yeah, but you know, having a couple of rules laid down so that it's interesting when they're broken, like Lucy does in your comic,
Nope.
is you know, that's a good sort of loose but interesting sort of magic system in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and you got a much more harder set in stone kind of magic system.
Yeah, mine's got a few more rules. There's, you know, there's you've got to draw a circle and you've got to say words, and then that you summon the spirit of you know, anger or you know, spirit of impatience or whatever, and then you get to have a chat with it and try to get it to do what you want.
And you can't do it over water.
You can't do it over
I
water.
remember that for some reason, that very specific thing. No water.
Oh, good, because it's going to come up in the next one.
Ooh, spoilers. I just remember it mostly because I had to reread that comic about Harry's dad a bunch of times when you had me
Oh,
doing that guest thing. So I reread that one a few times.
yeah, I bet you did actually. Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you did the short story for the back of the sixth volume, which came out fantastic, by the way.
Thanks. I don't know how to say the word thanks any other way than that, I suppose.
That's it. You're locked in now.
I'm locked in.
We should all just get you an avocado just for the
I
sake of
would
it.
I would love an avocado right about
just,
now.
just chomping on an avocado.
I would. I'm a millennial. What of it?
And it's good to keep in mind that like one thing I really wanted to mention, every single comic that we've mentioned so far outside of Sakana has been either award nominated or award winning comics. Widdershins was, I believe, was
Sakana
it
hasn't
did
been nominated for something?
Hasn't it?
as far
Are you
we checked.
sure?
It
I
should be.
It should be right. Like
It doesn't
I,
sound right to me.
yeah,
I
that's exactly the
know.
thing. It really is genuinely very influential, at least in the circles that we run in. But Widdershins was did it get nominated or did it win the 2019? It won
It won,
British
yeah.
Fantasy Award.
Yeah, it did. I
I didn't
wasn't.
know that.
Oh,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to win that one. It was up against like a Hellboy volume, so I was like, "This is
Oh,
a
you definitely
write-off."
deserved it.
Oh, thank you. No, it was a big shock to win that. It's a nice little trophy and everything.
Well,
It's a
I
yeah.
was not necessarily talking shit about Hellboy just then.
no, I know.
It was more that things that are not like franchises, I feel always deserve that kind of award more.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
I
Especially,
have
agree.
I have opinions about webcomics and awards.
and also like it's good to keep in mind like Hellboy has been going on for like at that time like 20 years, so
Oh,
like
Yeah,
yeah.
give somebody else a chance. Get out of here,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mike.
My
Yeah, no.
and I'm a big fan of Hellboy. Hellboy's cool, but it's also about uplifting, like the creators around you.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe Hellboy 2019 is not very good. I don't know.
it
Mm.
it
Like,
it was very pleasing because I was the only one on the list who didn't like have a publisher listed after the name of the book as well. So yeah, it was kind of nice that there was like a web comic independent kind of
Not anymore.
uh
You're one of us now.
like it's
yeah,
like
true.
Hellboy, Dark Horse, like Widdershins, me. Just me. I am the
Just
publisher.
me.
Um,
Yeah.
but as well, never satisfied. There was a Comics Alliance 2015 awards.
Yeah.
Uh, was that
It
a
was basically like
nomination?
I think it was anybody could nominate and then anybody could vote.
I
It was
voted
basically just
for
like a
you.
website popularity contest.
Well, you won it. Like
I
best new
did.
web. Yeah, best new webcomic 2015. Kate voted for you, as
I
she
did
said.
vote for
So like,
you.
Thanks, Kate.
yeah.
Oh, I said thanks like a normal person just then.
Well done.
A- and Paranatural, it has been shortlisted for an award. Um,
Yeah, I got
a couple,
nominated for something this year.
yeah, it
Oh
got
yeah?
nominated for this year. Let me get that award out. I should have done more prep work, but I have it right here on me.
Atla.
It's the Cartoon Studies Slate Books Cartoonist Studio Prize for Best Webcomic 2019. Um, so these are all like, and a couple of Hive comics actually.
Yeah, Tiger also.
Tiger Tiger as well, which we're gonna talk
Speaking,
about now. Who wants to take that?
I feel like I've taken the last two. Kate, would you like to?
What to describe
Okay,
it?
Yeah, you read it, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I love
Okay.
Tiger Tiger. Oh my god. So I guess it's kind of a high seas romantic adventure. Kind of a there's a lot of comedic elements as well, but mostly it's about the adventures of a lady who has swapped places with her twin brother to go aboard his tall ship because she
The
wants.
Gallant.
Yes, because she wants adventure and to look at sea sponges in more detail because she's a big fan of sea sponges. And it's there's also some nautical sea god sort of stuff nipping at the edges as well, which is getting very, very interesting.
And it's queer.
And it's very
It's
queer, and
extremely.
it's not only been nominated for the Cartoonist Studio Award. It's also been nominated for it was nominated for an Eisner as well,
I thought it won.
because did it?
No, it
God,
didn't. I don't
Oh, it
gosh
didn't?
think.
darn.
I
Well,
think.
phew.
No, no, it was a nom, not a winner, unfortunately.
Then it was
Uh,
Damn.
snubbed.
it
Some
wa-
one-page political comic probably won instead.
it
Like I said, I
happens.
have opinions.
Yeah,
No,
it's
no, familiar opinion.
yeah. I I remember the very first webcomic I edited that was an Eisner nom, and then it didn't win. And then I looked at the winner, and I won't say which comic it is, and I won't say who won. But I looked at it and I was like, really? Is that
It
we
drives me
lost to that one?
crazy that these awards compare or consider a webcomic, like a full color, whatever the hell webcomic, the same as somebody's maybe 3-page autobio, which I'm not saying those comics don't deserve recognition. I just don't think they deserve to be in the same category.
And
Yeah.
they're always done by very established people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's that kind of like well, I mean, this is a conversation for another stream, but like the it's kind of the problem that any award show goes through, and it's the same that, like, the Oscars go through. They don't have,
Yeah,
like,
like all
the
animated pictures are shoved into one category.
yeah, and they don't have, like, categories for, like, best comedy, for example, so they don't like, those films obviously just don't get awards at all,
Yeah.
and, like so, like, that is something that webcomics kind of are segregated in that way.
Yeah,
Both
it's
sometimes,
nuts,
like
really. I'm
yeah, like,
sorry.
some both some no, it's
No,
fine, it's
you go,
fine.
you go.
Like, both sometimes too segregated and sometimes too, like, put in with just a hodgepodge of other creators that, like, the webcomic newbies just don't stand a chance against, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's often the very established people. Like how sometimes there'll be a top 10 webcomics of whatever, and it has like XKCD
Yeah.
or like Control Alt Delete or like where are you? It's 2020.
Yeah, there's so many new ones that also deserve because, like, I mean, this is a whole other this is a whole other thing, but, like, it's you know, like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, but Kate, tell me what you like about Tiger Tiger. Tell me
It's absurdly
what's up with it.
gorgeous. It's just absurdly gorgeous. It's beautiful.
It's very pretty to look at, yeah.
I cannot get over like is it do you know her process or is it pen?
I she I actually I edit Tiger Tiger for Hiveworks.
Yeah.
My what I think she does is that she'll thumbnail and pencil. Atla, what is that?
What?
There was like a low noise that just came from you.
Oh, that would be my phone because I'm literally messaging Petra, so
Oh well. um, what was I saying? She
So
thumbnails and pencils on paper, and then she brings it into Procreate to ink and do the watercolors.
I wasn't
Think. I think.
yeah, I wasn't sure if the sort of watercolor wash was like physical or digital.
Yeah,
Because
it's digital.
it's absurdly beautiful.
Hmm.
It's another black and white one actually. Second black and white one that we're
Yeah,
talking about, but in a very different way to Sakana, because obviously that's
yeah,
got the heavy spot blacks.
yeah. I would say Tiger Tiger definitely relies on just her pure skill with construction and uh,
I
her
sort of
washes. Yeah, just
yeah,
like the feel of it. I wouldn't be
it
able to attribute it to any one particular quality. I think.
yeah, it's one of those that's actually quite tricky to pull apart what's gorgeous about it. I think the line weight really helps. Like she's got just an absolute mastery of line weight.
Hmm.
I wouldn't
mhm.
know where to begin on that. It's incredible. But also the story is fantastic. This current sequence with the flashback in the diary is absolutely killing me. I keep checking the page as soon as I can. As soon as I see there's a new update, I'm just like, oh my god! I never click anything quicker.
I get to see them early.
No, I'm so jealous.
I'm privileged.
Oh.
That I'm actually interested to know, Courtney, how does you being the editor shape your kind of like appreciation of the comic?
That's a good question, and I'll need to think about it.
You need to think about it. Okay,
I need to
well,
think about it.
we'll just abort that question for now, and we'll get back to it. Um, all right. So tell me, guys, in general, what like so there's kind of like this kind of grayscale going on, and it is like engaging you in terms of the actual story. So it's about like this young girl goes on this kind of adventure,
Yeah.
and what about yeah?
I want to
Well,
know if Remy and Jamis get to kiss.
yeah, I really want to know that too.
I want to see how this ends up because she's in such a she's very ironically a fish out of water here. She does not know what she's doing, and I
Oh?
want to see how she makes it work. Not Petra. I mean the what's her name? Ludovica.
I was about to say.
Ludovica.
Yeah,
I was like
yeah.
shocked. I was like, don't
I meant
put
this. I
the
meant the
author.
main character.
Don't
Everybody
put the
chill.
author on blast like that.
I would
Don't do that.
never. No, I
But
love
yeah,
her.
it's very, very. There's been a recent sort of thing where she's managed to sort of bump up against the more supernatural elements of the story, which I'm very excited to see unfold.
Yeah, I totally want to see more of Luck,
Oh, I really need
that
to see more
character.
of Look. Oh, what an amazing
She's so
character
cool.
with this incredible intro of her just being hanged, basically, and then just rising out of the depths.
She's fine.
She's fine, and it's great.
Yeah, so,
But
tell
yeah,
me a little bit, who's Luck in this context?
good question. Who is Luck?
Who is Luck? We just don't know. She's like this brigand, I guess is the word. Like she's just this criminal who's very sexy and was hung for her crimes and thrown out to sea, but then came back
I'm just gonna,
magically.
yeah, there. I've linked to her initial page in the stream chat where she is just immediately just an extremely compelling, interesting character. Like you look at this intro and you're immediately like, I want to know more.
Yeah, you know that something very neat's going on when the introduction of a character is them dying and it's not a story
Yes.
about the afterlife.
And the way like she's up on the gallows just bigging herself up, completely unconcerned about the fact that she's supposedly about to die, flirting with
Hmm.
women while on the gallows. She's brilliant. I want to know more. I really want to know more.
She's great.
So, yeah, so the story kind of centers around our lead getting to know all these different, like, hodgepodge of interesting characters with their own kind of backstory and life and whatnot.
Yeah, and at the moment she's sort of accidentally at first, but now very much on purpose. Found her brother's diary while aboard his ship, and she's reading through it. And
Like any good sister would.
of course, in fairness, it's extremely compelling.
It is.
And basically discovering some parts of himself that he has kept pretty hidden. And it's all really juicy stuff about the crush he has on his first mate, and
Who
it's
is her
great.
fiance?
Who is her
Mm.
fiance?
Drama.
Wow,
Uh,
that okay, so there's, like, primo, just, like, juicy soap opera drama sort of thing
yep.
going
Hmm.
on. Ooh,
All with the
that's
backdrop of like a ship about to sink, and they have to right this ship, while also clearly flirting, but not really.
Jimmy's is very straight as far as we know.
Hmm.
The great
yeah.
tragedy.
But
But there's
so what would you get? Oh,
sorry,
sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead, Kate.
I was just gonna say it's this good mix of sort of sweeping drama and very intriguing character interactions.
Mhm. What would you guys say is, like, the what do you guys take away from, like, the kind of this comic? Because it's a little bit different than many of the others. A lot of the others that we've mentioned, both yours and the recommendations, are more along the lines of, like, comedy with a heavy undertone of, like, drama or something along those lines. But this is very much like,
The reverse.
yeah, the reverse. There's, like, comedy moments, but for the most part, it's very, like, juicy, well-written drama. So what do you guys take away from this rather different story versus the other ones?
I don't know that I necessarily take anything away from it. Like, I assume you mean like influence?
Yeah.
I don't think I do. Not as a bad thing. Like, I think it's one of those things I just really enjoy looking at and reading, but I don't know that I would necessarily read. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
It's
Like,
a Oh, go on, sorry.
no, I was still just trying to find a word, but you go. I feel like you might have more because your genre is maybe closer to Tiger's than mine is.
Perhaps, yeah. I was just gonna say, so it's a little bit tricky to be like, what influences you, because sometimes it is just that you just really enjoy the thing and you don't necessarily notice an influence creeping in.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
probably still there, but it's the sort of thing that you might look back on after a couple of years and just be like, "Oh, because I watched this show or read this comic or read this book, I think I got a bit better at character interactions or whatever."
Yeah, like with Sakata and Paranatural, those are comics I would specifically look at as influence because they're the kinds of things I know for a fact I want to be similar to and want to do.
Mm.
But Tiger is very different from my work, so I wouldn't look at it in a learning kind of way, but I do look at those in a learning kind of way. So
Mhm.
it might be influencing me, it's just not as intentional.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the comic right now, and it has a lot of like what you guys like about Sakana and Paranatural. It has like very distinct facial expressions, really
Mm.
good both comedy and drama facial expressions, and so like it does have a lot of the elements that you two quoted as being kind of influences to your own work. So it's interesting that it wouldn't be counted among those, you know. But at a certain point, also like you stop paying attention to like what's influencing you,
Yeah.
especially when you're especially when you're getting like later into your kind of career and you're kind of
Yeah, like once you're more established, you don't necessarily look at things that way as much.
Mm.
Like I did get into Paranatural early on into making Never Satisfied, but I already was by then. And then it's like, oh my god, this is what I want to be doing. Sakana's
Mhm.
been there forever though. I was reading that when I was in like 10th grade.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kate.
Ugh.
Sorry, Kate.
I remember when it
When
was on DeviantArt.
Uh,
when I was when I when when Hive was starting, I was not of legal age yet. So like that should give you a
oh
good
damn.
indicator of
I don't think I was either.
No, neither of us were.
I remember
We were like
I got reached out to when I was doing the original Never Satisfied, which Kate might remember.
I do
Kate
remember.
remembers. And I was like, no, at that time. And then that Never Satisfied died. And then the new one got picked up. And thank God for that. The old one was bad.
uh
It was bad.
This one is
I
very, very good.
Thank you,
yeah.
Kate.
I do want to mention we're allowed to go a little bit over time, so that's fine because
Oh
we
yeah,
still
oops, it's
have a
two.
couple of things. But one thing I do want to mention is both you and me, Courtney, are editors for Hive, and we edit books, and we also create our own stuff. Like I write, and you do both writing and drawing.
Yep.
And one thing I do know from like personal experience, because I have edited stuff that normally would be huge influences on me, like very overtly. But when you're in an editorial position and you see all the like raw files and you see all the raw writing and you have to kind of like be like, no, that doesn't work, you need to change this or stuff like that. Like the story, the end story kind of like hits a little bit different for you.
Yeah, I would
And like
agree.
the yeah, like the emotional impact is different, you know. Like
Yeah.
so
Like,
I think go ahead.
no, you finish your thought.
I just think that it like a lot of the stories that we deal with like have that air of like, oh, this was a job that I did, rather than this is something I'm reading to try and kind of like either just enjoy or like experience as a creator and maybe like understand better, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of the work I do editorial wise for Hiveworks is more going through the submissions and doing text editing. I don't actually have too many opportunities to do story editing because a lot of my people are very either like they're very independent and they know what they want to do and they don't need my help. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I would agree. Like for Tiger, I do know some story elements. Like I do know some of Luck's deal.
Mhm.
more than you guys would.
Oh,
So that I'm not gonna tell you anything.
you better
Yeah,
not. I want to experience it in the comic.
It's gonna be neat.
it's gonna be.
Yee.
I, it's really interesting because like I picked I got to like basically when we were kind of assigning editors for last year, I got to kind of pick most of the comics that I really wanted to work on. And it's really interesting because you're telling me like, oh yeah, I have mostly people that like
Like I think I'm
don't.
Kate's editor, right?
You are.
Yeah, and we've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
we've never talked about
exactly.
the story because Kate knows what she's doing.
Yeah, like so like there's a lot of that. Meanwhile, on my end, and this is not a drag on any of the wonderful people that I work with, a lot of them are like, I need some help with this. I
That's
need
great
like I'm
though.
ending my. Yeah, like they definitely need like more hands-on experience. So even at like I think I have 3 or 4 comics that are ending a little bit before they wanted to. Like
Mhm.
so
It's a
like
tragedy.
but you know like they were just like I'm done. I want to finish up and like it's been a good time, but I want to like shave off a couple of years and do other stuff and like that's cool. And it's just
I respect
interesting.
that very much,
Yeah,
Absolutely. You know, actually
like
putting
calling
especially
food
it.
if
on
your
the
story
film.
is in a place where you can do that.
Oh
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
like,
Like thankfully all of them are like they're not like blowing up. They're just like I looked at it, I thought I was gonna do like 4 more years, 6 more years, and I want to maybe do 2 more years or like 6 more months or something like that.
mhm.
And like I totally respect that as well. Like you said, like because that does take a lot of effort. But what I was gonna say in relation to this topic is like if I'm like nearly constantly kind of jumping around and be like, okay, you need help, you're on a hiatus, you're on a break, you're doing your buffer. So like all of the Hive comics that I picked out that I love have now an air of like that work element where I'm like, oh no,
Oh, that's a shame.
I act yeah, like all of the comics that I really love are now my job.
That sounds familiar.
uh it's but like that's not like I said like that's not their fault like there and it's not like that is my literally me and Corny's jobs is to assist when they need assistance, you know.
Yeah, like
I
at
think
Hiveworks, it's entirely voluntary on the creator side, whether they want our help in that way or not.
I
It's
think
not that
Yeah,
we
that's
don't do it.
yeah, I
We
think
still
that's a
want it.
really great thing that you guys offer actually. Like just having the door open for questions like, yeah, like how do I shave a couple of years off of this? You know, I'm gonna be grandma again. Back in my day, we were very much like kind of left adrift. You know, you'd form
Insular.
communities where yeah, you form communities where you make friends with people, you know, and you chat with them, but it's a very different vibe to yeah, I will help you with this and I will treat you like, you know, the person who wants to get this done, you know, you are a working like professional and you want to do this. And you know, just having somebody to bounce ideas off in a slightly more professional context, that's absolutely a fantastic thing to have. So good on you guys for offering that, is what I mean.
yeah. I mean that's kind of the high works bread and butter is like adapting to the needs of creators and you know, like a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I can't quite mention, but like one example is like people have needed more Kickstarter assistance recently, uh,
Mhm.
especially because we're getting a lot of new folks in and stuff like that. And like so like we got to a point last year where there were more Kickstarter requests than there were people available to help. And so like after like I think 1 or 2 editorial meetings, we were just like, okay, myself and Giselle, one of the other editors, are just going to be trained this year to kind of like meet that demand, you know, so we can also take care of more of the workload when that comes in later. Uh, that's kind of been nerfed now that everything's been going on,
Yeah.
but but like you get where I'm going with it. Like there, like that's kind
We're
of
doing our
the
best.
yeah, we're doing our best, and that's the strength of Hive is just being like more people than average need help with this. Let's see if we can find a way to help with this.
It is a definite strength because yeah, back when we'd have to learn everything on our own or through the grapevine. Like, how do I make a WordPress? Oh God, and even back
What's a
before
keen spot?
WordPress. Yeah, oh no, get me started on Keenspot.
Please, I don't know anything about it. I'm a baby.
uh, it's all good. That's a whole other thing.
I'm just here to cause Kate pain.
we're just about done for now, but like if I would love through you, Mirk, like myself and you two, or like myself and Kate, or whoever, like I would love to talk more about like webcomics then and now, and like ending comics and stuff like that. I think that would be a really interesting topic to deal with next
Yeah.
time.
I'd love
uh,
to listen to a talk on that.
You
yeah.
Not
want
participate because I've never finished anything in my life, but
Tales from Grandma. Now you want Grandma. I
Yeah.
see how it is.
When I'm useful, when I can bake the cookies, that's when you want me here.
You avocado whippersnappers.
All right. So it's time for the outro. We're just about done for today. Where can people find you guys?
you can find me on Twitter at cornhime, Hime, or on Tumblr, which is ocorny, like OH corny, and at my website, neversatisfiedcomic.com.
Yeah, and I'm on Twitter at Kate Draws Comics. Same for Tumblr and pretty much everything else. And Widdershins is at widdershinscomic.com.
And
That's it. Nowhere else.
nowhere else. Uh, I was just gonna be like, because you were like, "Ah, I'm the grandma," and you're like, "I still have an active Tumblr," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that tracks." Um,
Hey!
but
I still use my Tumblr. It's where people harass me in my inbox.
I like some. I like.
that's
I
the
like. I like the people on Tumblr that follow the comic. They're all very nice.
um, but you can find me at Atla the Writer, ATLA thewriter.com. You can also find me at the same on Twitter, Atla the Writer. I am on break right now. I went on social media vacation because I just couldn't anymore.
Fair.
Uh, and but I will be starting like mid-May, something like that. And we'll look into that. But you can find me on the Twitter all the same and follow me and wait for that. Like good patient people. But yeah, that should cover it. Do you guys have any last words?
Excelsior.
Absolutely.
Well, I can't beat that. Yeah, he got it.
All right, uh that should be that should be it. See you guys later. We'll hopefully, I don't know if we have other streams right now. Our tech DJ will be furiously writing in my private message about whether or not we have anything. Um, but we'll at the very least have some more of these streams coming soon. We have an
Hopefully.
interview today.
Yeah.
We have an interview today with Brianne of Harpy Gee, lovely animator, lovely uh, animation
Comic
director,
artist.
comics artist who does Harpy Gee. Very beautiful comic that
I
I
also like RPG.
yeah, we should have recommended it. We're fools.
Oh my
If
god, is
this
that a pun on RPG?
Taylor,
Dude,
Ah!
are you
Taylor
just
Robin Corny.
I've
are you
never said it
just
out loud in my life.
Oh my god.
Oh
You
my god.
this is live. This is
Cut the
recorded.
stream.
It's
Get me out of here.
it's immortalized forever.
I'm never letting you live this down. The first
Ah!
time we meet, this is gonna be the first thing I say to you.
Oh no.
You know what? You got there in the end.
I got there.
All right. See you guys soon. Thank you guys so much for
Thank
watching.
you.
I'm gonna go jump in a hole.
I'm gonna go get food. All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Can everyone hear us? Hello, everyone. How you doing? How do we sound? Brianne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Can everyone hear us? What kind of
Oh,
what did-
sorry. I am so sorry.
Sorry about what? I was saying howdy.
I had the Twitch stream on, so I
Oh,
couldn't.
you can hear us for a little bit. I see.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
You guys couldn't, but anyway,
Hear us? Kind of,
it's working.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay.
I am so sorry.
Sorry about what? I was saying howdy. Perfect.
I had the Twitch stream on, so I couldn't.
Oh, you can hear us for a little bit. Got you.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
You guys couldn't, but anyway.
Yeah, Brianne, can you
It's
tell
working.
us a little bit about
Sorry about what? I was saying howdy.
Perfect. About what you had for breakfast today?
I had the Twitch stream on, so.
Oh, you can hear us.
Got you.
Oh wow, what did I have? Oh, I had egg on
Yeah,
toast
Brianne,
with
can you
avocado.
tell us a little bit about
Sorry about what? I was saying howdy.
Perfect. About what you had for breakfast today? 1 second. I want to try something.
Egg on
Yeah,
toast
Brianne,
with
can you
avocado.
tell us a little bit about
Sorry about what? I was saying howdy.
Perfect. About what you had for breakfast today? 1 second. I want to try something. Sorry, there was a little bit of an echo. So now, Brianne.
Egg on
Yeah,
toast with
Brianne, can you
avocado.
tell us a little bit about Sorry about what? I was saying howdy.
Perfect.
Is it still echoing?
It seems like it's still echoing a little bit. Can everyone hear okay? Sorry, there was a little bit of an echo. So now, Brianne.
Egg on
Yeah,
toast with
Brianne, can you
avocado.
tell us a little bit about Sorry about what? I was saying perfect.
Is it still echoing?
Yeah, it still is echoing a little bit. Can everyone hear okay? Sorry, there was a little
Can
bit
you-
of an echo. So now, Brianne. Yeah, I know what's happening. It's me. It's gotta be me. That's what's happening. I accidentally had this on. My bad. It was me the whole
okay.
time. Oh gosh. Anyways, how about we start actually talking about stuff? Hello
Yeah.
everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm a designer at Hiveworks, and I have the pleasure of being in the same call with Brianne of Harpy Gee. Brianne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like I have a million things to do, but I am taking a break right now. So it's great.
Cool. What for our listeners, for me, in this wild time that we're in right now, what do you have for breakfast today?
I had fried egg on toast with some avocado,
Hell yeah.
and it was
very
really
jealous.
good.
We were
I was gonna make French toast, but my milk had spoiled.
Oh no.
Sorry, I'm holding my paper. I shouldn't be doing that.
No, that's okay. Like, oh, that sucks that you're man.
I
Like,
just bought it last weekend too.
oh no.
And it had the right date. It probably was sitting in the truck too long before they put it in the grocery store
Oh no.
with everything going on. So who knows? I did get to use the milk a little bit though. I didn't have to throw the whole thing out. I just went to go use it. And I was like, oh shoot. So it's fine. One of my friends surprised me with a box of fresh maple syrup and
Whoa.
cheese a day or two ago. So I was like, maple syrup, French toast. So it's okay. It's like French toast is good when the bread gets stale anyway. So like, if I go out next weekend and get milk, it'll be perfect.
Awesome. I am very jealous of that. Like the avocado, the crate of maple syrup that you got. Like myself, I had a breakfast of thinking about Harpy Gee. And that's called a segue.
I am so sorry.
No, it's okay. I have been reading up on Harpy Gee because I've read it off and on throughout the years. But I hadn't caught up on the latest chapter. And having this opportunity to interview you here for this stream gave me a good chance to not only go back and read some older chapters, but also, catch up. And this, when we talked before, we sort of came up with an idea of, fun stuff to talk about with Harpy Gee.
Mm-hmm.
And my first question for you is, some of the people in the stream right now might not know what Harpy Gee is. How do you pitch Harpy Gee to people?
Oh wow! Of course, I left the book with the back. Anyway, I usually just pitch it as like an elf, a knight, and a witch, and a prince. Like they run an item shop in a small fantasy village, and there's potatoes and a goblin cat that stores weapons, and that's usually how I've been pitching it.
Mm-hmm.
Off the get-go. Like if I'm at a convention, because I have a wide range of ages that read the comic. Like I have people as young as 4 and 5 that read it, up to people older than me who read it. And that's something I like. Like I want to keep it that way. So I usually pitch it very, very bare bones. Also, like, because I have an animation background, like they want you to pitch things in one sentence, which is very hard to do if you have, for how long Harpy has been going. It's very faceted now. Like there's just so many elements to it. It's hard to break it down.
Yeah.
But and these are things I had to write up when I was in development Nickelodeon. I have a bunch of stuff written about what the story arcs are, like all this stuff, and like the character motivations and what the underlying themes are. And a lot of that stuff I don't think was ever seen, actually, even by the execs that it was passed on to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot. They don't really need it. They just need something really simple. So I kind of went through that last night, because it's like I was trying to come up with like a really, for any, like, it's a little spoilerly if you haven't read it, but it's only these are really only spoilers probably for like the first 2 chapters of the comic for how long it's been going.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the real rundown for Harpy is Harpy is, her real name is actually Gigi Geranium.
Mm-hmm.
But her nickname is Harpy. But Harpy is the only elf who can't use magic in a world full of it. She has a pet goblin cat named Pumpkin, who is her bag of holding, and he is her first and best friend. So she's a character who at first has her dreams and talent taken from her, but still becomes a brave heroine in her own right. She runs away to a small human town to find her independence, and everyone she meets, she affects those around her in a positive way. So that's pretty much the rundown of it.
Mm-hmm. And how accurate do you feel that is whenever you pitch it?
You mean like to other people, or?
Yeah, because like that is a more expanded pitch. Like there, you gave me your first sort of condensed one.
I usually just give people
one.
I usually give people the very first one, where it's a fantasy comic. It's more slice of life. Although anyone who's been reading the comic knows that there's actually, like, there's other stuff going in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I keep in mind when I'm working on the comic is that one of the themes with it is that even though the setting is in a small town, that small town is just as important as the capital city elsewhere in the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Like things that seem very small or just day to day, they affect other bigger things. So it's a little slice of life, but I don't know. It's one of those things, like, that small things have value, I guess.
Yeah. And it's, Harpy Gee has been going on long enough, and this is something that I want to get into, is that from my understanding, a comic that goes on long enough becomes about a lot more than you can summarize in a sentence. Like if you ever could.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And I've seen the expression on some artists' faces when they try to explain their comic to someone, and even if they know a sentence that they can pitch, they can feel that there's something that they're leaving out, or they don't know what part they should leave out.
Yeah, that's very difficult to do. It's hard.
And when you went through that process, like you mentioned briefly the pitch that you made, um, do you think that you have a better handle on it now, or do you feel like Harpy as a story, Harpy Gee, is big enough or like moves around so much that you kind of can't come up with a good way to summarize it?
It's not. I mean, like I said, like I was able to like write that up last night. Like it is a lot about like Harpy when she was a child, she could use magic. She was really good at it, and it was taken from her. And there is a quote that happens during chapter 2 where she's talking to another character that is going through their own growing pains, but almost the opposite of her, where it's somebody who has fallen into having magic and doesn't really want it.
Hmm.
But she kind of says, sometimes you have no control over the role you are given, no matter of the one you wanted to play. She's like, I've moved forward from what I can't change. It wasn't the end of the world. It's different, but it's not bad. If my plans had gone the way I wished, I wouldn't be here now. My life is still moving along. So she's kind of an optimistic, um, she's a, extrovert or whatever. But a lot of what she says kind of ties into a little bit with like my own life as far as work. And you work really hard and you expect certain things to happen, but they don't happen, and it can feel really devastating. But other things happen that you don't expect, and you learn to enjoy those, and you start to see those as gifts. So yeah, her as a character, um I don't know, it kind of ties into like the story too. Like it's like things might seem small or not perfect or whatever, but they affect everything around them,
Mm-hmm.
and it can still be okay and good. So I want people to feel good after they read the comic. I mean, there's going to be some down points or like parts in the story where things are going to be kind of sad or melancholy, but there's always going to be like some sort of light at the end of that.
That's wonderful.
So
That's
sorry if that
wonderful.
went on a bit of a tangent. Like I'm just thinking of too many things at once sometimes.
Oh no, no, that's no problem. And for people who are in the chat, you should be seeing pages right now, and the character of Harpy Gee is the one with green hair. Um, you should be seeing pages from all over Harpy Gee. Some newer ones, some older ones. And Brianne, before we get too deep in, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, I have been working in the animation industry since about 2004,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked as a character designer, as a storyboard artist, as a director, and I've worked on a couple of pilots. Excuse me, I drink water.
No, that's
I
no problem.
Yeah, I directed a series of shorts for DC Nation back in 2011, called Amethyst Princess of Gemworld.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got to make a pilot through Nickelodeon for Harpy Gee, and you can go on YouTube, just search Harpy Gee and it'll come up. They had to turn comments off because of the whole, the kid thing that was, I forgot what it was called, the YouTube thing that was going on.
Yeah.
But you can watch it. It has the most views out of all the Nickelodeon shorts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that, and Nick was really cool, and they linked to the comic in their comment or their description box or whatever.
That's
So,
really cool. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I actually had a really good experience with that studio. I had I had a few people championing me to make sure that what we were making was in spirit of the comic and wasn't going too far off the rails. So yeah. So but yeah, that's kind of my background. I kind of do a little bit of everything in animation. I'm currently directing on DC Superhero Girls.
Oh,
I
cool.
started Yeah, I started a couple months ago. The crew has been really great. It's been a lot of work, of course, like I was expecting that, but we started work from home back in March, and like that's I actually kind of have had the comic on hiatus for the past month. I've been running a guest comic
Mhm.
because like, everyone's just adjusting to the work from home thing, and it just threw an extra wrench. But I had a friend surprise me with a guest comic. I had no idea he made it. He just showed up with it, and that saved my butt the past 3 weeks.
That's
So,
wonderful. Who made it?
yeah. Uh my buddy Gray Grankin, he also works in animation. He actually he was directing on the How to Train Your Dragon TV show for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like I think there was an Easter egg some people noticed in there. And like I didn't even know he put it in there. Like
Oh,
so
really?
if anybody was like that looks like that sort of looks like a character, but it's not that character, but it looks like that character. And yeah, so if you're a How to Train Your Dragon fan, there's an Easter egg in there for you.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really nice though. Like I was kind of like, well, I'll just put the comic on break for a few weeks, and he was just like, oh no, I did this 6-page comic, and I was like, sweet.
Awesome. Awesome. And
Yeah, so
anybody in the chat, if you're interested, I'm going to do it right now. But if you type !Harpy, you will be able to see the short little pitch that Brianne just gave, and Brianne's Twitter info, as well as a link to the comic. Brianne, uh, do you prefer that name? Brianne, do you want me to use your full name?
Brienne's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
This is a lot of cool stuff that's happened to Harpy. Like, you are like, oh gosh, like Easter eggs in movies, pitches with Nickelodeon, like all kinds of stuff. This has to have had an influence on Harpy as a story over time, right?
Um, Maybe a little bit. I mean, like I think because of my background in animation, I really treat the comic more in a different way. Like I don't have a comic background.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did the comic because I had some friends that were they told me I needed to do the comic. Like I like the beginning of like the 2010 decade, there was some really rough stuff that kind of happened. It wasn't great. And I was just I felt really lost, and I just did not feel great.
Mm.
And there is a website which is kind of broken right now. Nobody's been updating on it for a few years, but there was a comic website called Dumb Comics, and it was run by a group of animation people, and everybody had their own day for updating. Like you had to update that day. Like you had Monday, like some people had Monday, Tuesday, or whatever. And they had a slot open for Monday, and like they'd been asking me for a year to do this comic. And Harpy actually had been an animation pitch before this.
Oh.
It had been it got briefly optioned at Cartoon Network for the Cartoon Institute back in like 2008 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was like during the recession, and I didn't have any work that year, and somebody told me, hey, they're on your like I heard they want to see a pitch from you, and I'd already been drawing the Harpy characters. It wasn't a pitch at that point, actually. Sorry, I'm like kind of going on a backwards tangent, but
Okay.
my first animation job was on Teen Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always wanted to make stuff outside of work on my own anyway. And my first boss, Glenn Mirakami, was like, hey, do you ever want to do something else other than just, doing design or whatever? And I was like, well, I want to make stuff, films or whatever. And I kind of just started drawing the characters. Like I was like, I want to draw what I want to make. Like I want to make a cartoon or something about like RPG type characters. Like I used to play a lot of JRPGs when I was younger. And anyway, I've been drawing those characters for a while. Cartoon Institute was a thing that was happening. They were looking for pitches from artists. So I threw Harpy together really quick. Like, I wasn't working at that point. There was no design jobs. And I pitched it, and Craig McCracken, who was in charge of the Cartoon Institute, he liked it, and they wanted me to put a storyboard together. And basically, for me to get the money, I had to board it myself.
Whoa.
So it forced me to do it forced me to do my very first storyboard, and it's awful. It's so crude. And I did it, and Craig actually really liked it. That's actually
Oh, that's awesome.
that's kind of how I know Lauren Faust, because he brought my pitch home, and then she messaged me and was just like, I really like this. If this goes forward, can I write a script on it? You know, and this is like before, like, she was on, I think they were doing Foster's at that point, or they were finishing up on Foster's.
Mm-hmm.
So Pony and all that stuff hadn't happened yet. So I pitched the board, and then the head of the studio basically was like, "Oh, we're not going to take shows with girl leads. We only take shows for boys and mothers of boys." So yeah, that was always kind of weird after that. And then I was kind of like, well, fine, whatever. But I ended up getting a storyboard job because I did that. Like, I ended up boarding on Batman, and that's segued into board. So Harpy's had a weird influence in my career. Like, it's never, wasn't really an animated thing for a very long time, but it's actually affected a lot of my decisions. So fast forward to 2011, 12 or whatever, and like, things kind of just did not work out. And I had some friends that were like, hey, you should really make Harpy a comic. It's time. Like, I had a friend message me, and she was like, I really want to see this done. She's like, I think it's time for it. So I took the Monday slot on Dumb Comics, which was really scary, because if anyone's familiar with Dumb Comics from about, 7 or 8 years ago, there was just like a weird toxic comment section on that site.
Oh, no.
And I didn't have to deal with it too much. But honestly, the response for Harpy was really good, even though I kept trying to quit it the first 6 months, just because I was kind of like, oh no, it's, maybe I shouldn't be doing this or whatever. Because it's hard to put yourself out there. And it's the other thing too is that when I first started updating Harpy, I didn't have the full story figured out at that point. I was just kind of doing it in baby steps. I actually retconned a lot of stuff early on, but by halfway through chapter 1, I knew what my plot is. I knew where I wanted the characters to go and what was going to happen. I changed a lot of things at the beginning because there was a lot of stuff in my animated pitch that wasn't working. So my main goal when I started the comic was just to get the characters to the item shop, make sure that they became friends, just keep it really basic. And then afterward, I kind of filled everything else out. So, so anyway, like, I feel like Harpy's really intertwined with like my animation career in that way. And I kept doing the comic after that. And then I was working, I at some point I ended up storyboarding at Nickelodeon, and Nick really wanted me to do something there, but same thing early on. They were like, we would take a project from you, but like, we can't take any female-led stories because the execs at the very top, like, they're only going to pick up stuff that they know is going to make them money or isn't a risk. And this isn't really even a knock against Nick. Every studio does this, and things have gotten better. Obviously, like, there's more diversity out there finally, and it's been proven that like that's not necessarily the case, that only one type of thing sells. So because the thing is even the execs giving these marching orders, like, they don't agree with it either, but it's their job. So I kept working on Harpy while I was storyboarding on a show, and then the director I was working for, he found out about the comic, and he actually was really supportive and went through the comic and found like compositions or panels he liked, and was like, hey, you should try to put this more into your storyboarding. So, and also if I ever had any downtime, he would just like come by my desk and be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to have your script ready for a couple days. Like, just work on your comic. So it was kind of nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of nice people in the industry, and I'm really grateful for that. Anyway, just to get really quick to why Harpy became a short. So one of the execs who had asked me when I first started working at Nick to pitch something, and they're like, "Oh, we can't make that right now. Like they're looking for something really specific." And I could have pitched something with what they wanted, but I also know like if I work on something I don't want to do, I'm not going to be happy, and they're not going to get the best work out of me anyway. So I just kind of told them like, "Oh, just pair me up with somebody. Like if you want me to do art for somebody or something, if it comes up. Like otherwise, like I'm fine with it just being a comic. It's fine as a comic. I'm happy. The people reading it are happy." It's like why ruin a good thing? Like I don't have to constantly be trying to like top myself or take it further. Like sometimes it's okay to let things be what they are. So yeah, anyway, one of the execs came back a couple years later, and I was still at Nick, and she called me on my work phone, and she's like, "Hey, so there's the door open. They're looking for a 22-minute action adventure fantasy led girl show."
Ooh.
So she's like, "Do you want to give Harpy a chance?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's take it." Because that's your thing too, is a lot of people don't realize animation development, a lot of it is timing and luck.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to keep putting yourself out there, so when the time does happen, I never thought I would ever see that happen. And I also had people on the Nickelodeon side that made sure that I kept my publishing rights, my self-publishing rights.
Yeah.
So that is why Harpy was able to keep running as a comic while it was in animation. And that was something I also wasn't going to back down from. Like if you get approached by a studio or a publisher, like you need to realize like what are you willing to let go? Like what, like is it worth it? And that was the only thing I was not willing to back away from, and I luckily had people on my side with that. Because honestly, most stuff that goes into development does not get to go to series.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of close friends who have stuff that's locked away. Or, a lot of stuff is reboots that you work on too. And it doesn't matter what you do with a reboot. It's not yours when it's done.
Yeah.
You can still be proud of it. You can still learn from it. You can still love it. But, yeah, so Harpy got to be a short. And of course the thing is like things change on a dime. Like, yeah, that door was open, when I went into development, but like a year later that door closed and they're not looking for that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I wasn't like heartbroken. I was a little bit like, oh, that's a bummer, but also yay, I can keep going with the comic. Because the other obstacle I was going to have was if it did get picked up, like the people who originally helped with my deal weren't at the studio anymore. So, and I don't think the execs I was passed on to even looked at any of the stuff I had. So I was kind of okay with them passing on it. Because it would be such a shame to lose what the ending of this comic's going to be. There's only a few people who know what the ending is. And one of them is like the exec that originally put me into development. And when I told her what the ending was, she actually clutched her heart. So I was kind of like,
Aw.
oh, yeah, and I worry about like the comic going off the rails or feeling too convoluted, but I actually am working off of an outline. And it was kind of nice to be in animation development because some of the people that saw the outline, I'd be like, is this clear? Like, should I work on this more? And they were very positive about it. And they're like, no, this totally makes sense. This reads. So
That's
anyway, sorry if
wonderful.
that was a little bit like, woo, but
No.
it's just a lot.
No, and I mean, that's something that I wanted to know about was, I mean, from my understanding, animation is a very demanding job. It's, depending on what you're doing, but more often than not, you're very busy. You're working on other people's stuff. You're drawing a lot, and that has to have some influence on at least the process of Harpy Gee. But because you've also pitched it, there's content there. There's, how you've changed parts of the story based on having to pitch it. There's other aspects of that. Is there, and this happened at what chapter was this happening in Harpy Gee?
Oh yeah, that's another thing. I know I've talked to some of the readers on Discord about it a little bit. So I had just started chapter 4 when I started in development at Nickelodeon. And the other thing that was cool about being in development at Nick was they had a program called The Collective where all I did for 6 months was just work on my own project. I wasn't working on anyone else's show. It was just me working on Harpy and doing my comic for Harpy. So that was really cool. Like that does not that that never happens. So yeah, it was chapter 4, and I knew I wanted to have a arc that was a little bit of like a festival and like getting to know the town. And I stretched it out longer than it should have because I was buying myself time. The chapter that is going on right now, we're actually back in the main storyline. I mean, not that chapter 4 wasn't the main story. Chapter 4 was kind of like, I want to wrap things up in a nice package because if Harpy got picked up, it would be 2 more years till anyone would ever see it again. So I wanted to leave the readers at a good spot where everybody, you know, there's a resolution with some things or like the main stuff. But yeah, it got stretched out longer because of that. Like I was biding myself time, and there was some stuff I really wanted to see happen in animation first. Like the current chapter, there's a certain character that shows up in town. Like some of the readers have been waiting 6 or 7 years for this, and she just showed up. I really wanted to see that animated first. So yeah, I was stalling myself. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, chapter 4 felt really long. And it's like, yeah. Also, it was me enjoying my time with the characters a little bit. Like, I'm like, I want some silly stuff. Like, I want to see them, you know, play games together or like, you know, introduce some secondary characters and stuff. Just flesh things out a little bit. But anyway, going forward, all weights are off. So things are gonna start happening fast.
Got you. And this chapter 4 is the smallest apology, right?
Yeah.
So I posted a link to that in chat if anyone's interested. So at this point, I mean, you were pitching it, you were working on stuff, you were focusing on the characters, you were thinking about a lot of different aspects. Like when this comic has been sort of interwoven into your life, into your creative life, like some people have distinct separations between their work and their creative work. Other people's, those blend together. It sounds like that's your case. How did you avoid getting burnt out?
I have gotten burnt out. I have taken breaks, and I think anyone doing a webcomic should feel okay taking breaks. If you can, just let readers know in advance if you need to take a break. Like, I am so appreciative to anyone who's been reading it for understanding that. Like, I have never gotten much flack from needing to take a break. When I was storyboarding at Nickelodeon, when I was working on Pig Goat Banana Cricket, that was a very, very heavy show to storyboard on. It was a 22-minute show, and there was a chunk of boards that I kind of had to board the bulk of myself. So I was working weekends, and I can't do all-nighters anymore. That was the last show I did all-nighters on. And you shouldn't have to do all-nighters. It just was, that was the situation. And the thing is, I can work really hard as long as the people above me have my back, you know? So I don't have any regrets for what I did, but I don't want to have to do that again. But what basically happens is, on a storyboard rotation, you usually have 2 or 3 weeks to do your rough and your rough boards. So during those 2 and 3 weeks, I would not work on Harpy. There was no time to work on Harpy. I was boarding on weekends. But then once you get your rough in, my notes were usually pretty light, so I'd have my weekends back. So the next 2 or 3 weeks, when we were doing cleans, which is like going in and just fixing, you know, finessing the drawings, any notes they have, you know, adjusting, you know, just the whatever loose ends. My weekends would be free. And also, I'd usually be a little ahead of schedule by then. Like, you know how I mentioned, like, my director would come by, like, you know, like if I had my stuff turned in, he's like, you're done. You don't have anything for you.
Gotcha.
So I would maybe have a Friday that was kind of free. So I would work on my buffer during those weeks. Like I board and thumbnail. I call it boarding. I thumbnail and I rough out my pages and thumbnail my pages out in chunks with Harpy. Like I work in sections. Like an example, like there's one I think the third chapter, there's a part where Ash and Humphrey become friends. Like Ash tries Humphrey's muffins and he's like, oh my God, these are amazing. Like that was probably 4 or 6 pages. I will rough out 4 or 6 pages on like a Saturday, start pencil roughs, that day, then do the inks on the Sunday, color that night on like the first 1 or 2 pages. But the thing is since I have those roughs and thumbnails, that frees up space in my brain, and then I just that clears me for the next 4 or 5 weeks. For the next board, like while I'm at work and I'm on the board rotation with the roughs, I don't have to worry about those pages. They're already done. Mm. So I was constantly eating into my buffer, and that worked for a while. And then when I started development on Harpy and Nickelodeon, and I didn't have the full-time storyboard job, like I had a little bit more of a breather. I also try to take at least a month off between chapters. Mm. And I think that's a pretty good idea. Although whenever I start the comic up again, it's always the same struggle to get like back into the rhythm of it. Like it never gets easier, but once I do, it's pretty. It's the thing is like I think the reason I've also been able to keep doing the comic for so long is I've kept it as something that I can look forward to. I kind of keep it in this category of being a hobby. Like this is my therapy. This is where I go to get away from things. Like I'm free here. And if it starts to not be fun anymore, then yeah, like I'm going to need to take a break, because I want to keep doing it. And I'm only going to keep doing it as long as I want to. So
yeah, absolutely. And that sounds really wise I mean, once you hit a certain point, I've heard from other artists that, when you start your comic, you have a story to tell, you have a direction you want to go in, but I believe I've used this metaphor before. You're sort of building your own house. And yes, when you set it up, you're in control over how you want that house to operate. And for some people, they accidentally build themselves a prison because they have too aggressive of an update schedule for their life, or other factors. And it sounds like you figured out a pretty decent rhythm to set with yourself, giving yourself breaks, things like that. And other creators I've heard are worried. They want to take breaks, but they're worried how much they'll impact their numbers, how much they'll impact their lives and their readerships. It sounds like your readers are pretty happy as long as you are being really communicative with them. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. The other part of that too is I'm very fortunate because my real bread and butter and how I'm staying afloat and a roof over my head is because I have a job working in the animation industry.
Yeah.
Like I'm part of a union. We have good health insurance. Like I'm really busy, but I'm not busy all the time. Like, I have, like, we only have a job as long as our show is running. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty common in between like shows I'm working on to be out of work for 2 or 3 months. There's a lot of give and take with that. So Harpy isn't my main income. I don't treat it as my main income. Like, mm-hmm. So I don't have, like, if I update more than once a week, then I'm going to be falling into that trap. It's going to be work, and I don't want it to be work. Mm-hmm. I know that I like to update like 1 or 2 pages a week. And I know it kind of confuses some people because like, well, she should stretch it out to 1 page a week or do multiple updates if she's doing multiple pages. Well, I don't know what my schedule at work is going to be that week. Like, I don't know if like I have an extra fire that needs to be put out, like it's just like, that's my main job. Other people are relying on me. Like that's not flexible. So, and I like to do 1 or 2 page updates because I like to keep things like, I like to end an update like on a button. There is usually a joke or a piece of information. So if I can do it in 1 page and it flows okay, that's fine. But that's a big reason why I usually do 2 pages. Mm-hmm. Is I just kind of like how it reads, and in that way it hooks people to come back the following week that way too. Mm-hmm. Like you kind of give them a meal, like a snack, but then they're going to come back for the next course, sort of.
Yeah. And there is something about deciding how you are going to update and what sort of feeling that leaves the audience with. There are Netflix shows that update entire seasons at a time. Um,
Hmm.
and how, rather than thinking about how that will influence, I mean, in this case, you are thinking about your reader's experience, but you're also paying attention to not to go too far overboard and burn yourself out. Because then
Hmm.
you'll never get to
Yeah.
the ending that you want. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
has this always been this way, or have you slowly developed, like figured out how you're doing this? Like
I
updating
just
two at a time.
I just kind of figured that out probably about like the first year in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew going in, like I was already kind of like in a rough patch when I started the comic. So when the comic started, like the backgrounds don't have any color. They're all mostly black and white. I would just use color burn, and do a layer of Photoshop on top a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a decision that the characters were like going to be the only things that were colored early on. I try to be really economical with the colors I use. Like the green that's in Harpy's hair is the same green in Ash's eyes. That way I'm not having to like go back and forth as much.
Yeah.
Like there's tricks like that. I mean, obviously, like in the like especially this chapter, like I've been like I'm coloring the backgrounds now. Like I want this for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Also, yeah.
no, I
Sorry.
was going
I
to
just
say, yeah, absolutely. Like in knowing what you're doing for yourself is really important.
Yeah. I will say I get color help once in a while from my friend Josh Perez, who's in the chat. He goes by Dimooch. So hi, thank you, Josh.
Oh,
He has saved my butt a couple of times. Like sometimes, like if I have a really bad crunch and the pages are inked and done, but coloring can still take a long time.
yes.
And I'll message him like, "Are you available? Do you have like some free wiggle room?" And yeah, he just does it, and he's a professional at it too. So whenever the color looks really good, that's him.
Oh, thank you for doing that. That's really nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, that's nice on him.
that's so wonderful. So it sounds like you
Yeah.
have support in other places as well for when
Yeah.
things aren't exactly working the way you'd like.
Yeah, and I usually whenever I'm working on my story on my side, I have a couple of close friends that I'll I'll um I'll get their thoughts on it and be like, "Hey, is this clear? Is this worded okay?" So that's kind of just a system that I've had. Like I have a friend. I mean, we can't do it right now because of all the social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
But on weekends, usually on Saturdays, I'll go to a coffee shop and hang out with a friend, and she usually does like knitting or crochet or other things while I just draw my comic and we just talk about various things, and I'll be like, hey, does the motivation for this character seem like weird to you, or and that's been nice too. Like it's hard to work in a bubble. Like I might seem like I'm working in a vacuum, but I don't really feel like I am because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because also the other thing too, to like go back to the animation thing, like there's a lot of stuff in animation that as much as we want to do it, like stories that we want to tell or types of characters, um, it's we have a company or a corporation above us that says we can't do these things, because money,
Yeah.
and we don't want to offend a certain country or something. But the thing is the comic has been an outlet for that. And just really quickly, just because it's something that popped up in my brain. The other thing that's been interesting, because I understand how long it takes to do a season of animation. Like 13 episodes can easily take you almost like it takes 9 months for animation to come back once you ship the storyboard.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost feels like 2 years till audiences see it. I can finish 2 chapters of Harpy in 2 years. And when I was breaking down chapters for how they would work as episodes for Nick, I found out that each chapter would be like just a random number, but like 4 or 5 episodes. So it was like kind of funny, like, oh, it takes 2 years to do 2 chapters, and each chapter is like almost 5 episodes a piece. That's close to a full season. I'm spending the same amount of time doing like it's just been funny that way. And I think that's one reason I've been kind of okay with it not going to animation.
Yeah.
Like, it would take the same amount of time to do animation as it is to do the comic story.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, it's really funny that kind of did the math on it and like, huh, like, so do I want to risk a studio taking this and then deciding that if they want it, they want to do 11-minute, but like we can't, have any main plot. We can't have, I know Cartoon Network, one of their notes was that Ash needed to be the lead character
Mm-hmm.
if they wanted to go forward with it. And at the time I was willing to do it just because it was like, oh, it's a foot in the door,
Yeah.
And I wasn't as attached to the characters then either,
Mhm.
like they weren't fleshed out enough then. So,
And
but yeah, just something to keep in mind for anybody who's doing webcomics and working animation at the same time. Like, just think about the time, like the timeline. You're not losing anything really if it doesn't go to animation.
yeah, I have heard that because I have some friends who, they will do a webcomic and then they'll work on other kinds of art. And they'll make jokes about how like, oh, I had this great scene in my head. It'll be a year until I can do it. But hearing the other end of like, it's the same time for me, I'm an animator, or maybe I'll be able to do it faster, depending on their process. Like it is interesting to hear that. And like, also, yeah, like Ash, for those who aren't familiar, Ash is a character that is a bit more, is it appropriate to say that Ash is kind of like a Sokka character from Avatar: The Last Airbender, like a
Yeah,
bit of a practical person?
yeah, he started out the least fleshed out. He was the blandest character when he started, and he's really grown since then. I actually wrote that down on my notepad in case that came up. Technically, Ash is this character that really actually should be the hero in the story. Like, he has all the settings. He's the one who has his father's sword. He's the one who's kicked out and like sent, he seems to have more destiny involved than he realizes, So I think it's pretty funny that and I think that's probably why that certain exec at Cartoon Network was like, oh, make Ash the lead, because he's like Ben 10. Although, I mean, I haven't watched the recent Ben 10 series. I heard it's very like, I know there's a lot of likable things about it. Like I've seen art my friends have done on the show and stuff. It looks good. But I worked on the first few series of Ben, and Ben's really bland, and he doesn't really have a lot. Like, the other characters around him are more interesting, and like that's an easy thing to fall into with I mean, I think with television media in general, not just animation, but I've worked on a lot of shows where the main character is really bland because they want kids that are watching it to self-insert. Like, I understand that, it's kind of funny. I know that those guys probably don't even remember this, but I think it was it Omniverse Ben 10? When Matt Youngberg and stuff took it over. I remember we went to lunch one day, and I wasn't working on the show. Like, I just do freelance for those guys sometimes. And they were talking about like, what do we do with Ben? And I remember like Scott Pilgrim just came out or something, and I was just like, dude, just make him like that guy. Just let him be a douche, Like, I mean, he is one. Just lean into it. So I know that's coming up in an interview with Matt before. Like, he's mentioned that. So, but I don't know if he remembers me saying that. But Ash is not. Ash kind of started out kind of being a jerk, but Ash is he's the naive little brother in the group, is what he is.
Yeah.
And he wants to be a knight. He wants to be a fighter, but he's an artist, and he likes, he's kind of the goofball. He's just a happy-go-lucky guy. So,
yeah, and
I enjoy him.
he provides a pretty good contrast to Harpy whenever they're in scenes together.
Yeah. He's, in all respects, he's basically her little brother, is how I've been treating him. I also know that there's a lot of like this, and this is all my personal, like, this, like, there's nothing wrong with this, but this is just my own personal pet peeve, and it was actually one of the reasons I was willing to sign with Nickelodeon. I kind of am not a fan of love triangles. There's nothing wrong with them. I understand why they happen. I think it's just because I worked on a lot of superhero shows where those things happen, and after a while, a lot of it is it's pitting the girls against each other, and it's not fun in real life. I don't really want to see it in TV. Like, and there was a few TV shows in the early 2010s that had a lot of that going on. And I remember when I was talking to the exec at Nick about, she's like, well, what do you not want to do with this? Like, she's like, I think the characters are in a good place. They're fleshed out. We don't really need to go in and change them. She's like, there's going to be notes, but I don't think there's going to be any notes on the mains. And I told her, like, I don't want a love triangle. I don't want Opal and Harpy fighting over stuff, because honestly, like, no one's worth fighting over for friendship like that. And I think the characters are grown up enough to know better. And she shook her head yes, like, so hard. And she's like, like I said, like, there was some other shows going on at the same time. She's like, yeah, because it didn't work for this show. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't work for this other show either.
Yeah.
So sorry, not to be like too catty, but it drives
no.
me up the wall.
No, but
like,
it's dynamics that you already have set in your head. You've had the time with these characters to understand what they're capable of and what not capable of. And like, for the listener or viewer, the character of Opal is the pink-haired one on the broom right now. And Ash is the brown-haired one that you can see in some scenes. And you know that they're dynamic together, how Harpy and Opal relate to each other. Here you can even see that they're cooperating and not wanting that dynamic in your work. Like, yeah, obviously, of course, rather than trying to insert it into some place that it doesn't belong.
Yeah, if it doesn't fit, like, this isn't the story for it. Oh, there's a dog outside. Sorry. Yeah.
But that's wonderful. I'm glad that you know that one, you had so much support in this process.
Yeah.
That you have support now in your comic that you've built over time, that you've built this comic to fit into your life. And when it's been close to being translated into another medium, you've had support there too.
Yeah,
cool.
I've honestly been really lucky. Like, I mean, nothing is perfect. I know that there's probably things that, like, probably could have been handled a little bit better. But overall, the people I worked with at Nick were really great. And a lot of them aren't even at Nick anymore. Like, execs move around as much as artists do. So,
yeah.
It's fine. It was one of those things. It was a bucket list thing. Like, I never thought I was going to see those characters animated. I also even got the voice actors I wanted for them too,
that's cool.
Which is really funny. Yeah, like, I'll admit, like, when I first started working on the comic early on, because I've worked on a lot of, like, Warner Brothers stuff off and on. I always could hear Jason Spizak when I was drawing Humphrey, which is the Whitehead Prince. Because he did Razor in the Green Lantern TV show, and he's done some other stuff. But I was like, yeah, it's a very trope. It's a very and it was funny too, because I'd met Jason a few times before that. So when he came in to record Humphrey, he ran up and gave me, like, a big hug, and he's like, oh my God.
Oh,
he's like,
that's
what do you
wonderful.
want? Yeah. And I'm like, I hate, and I told him I hate to typecast you, but I'm like, it's that whole, like, it's not like I like you or anything. And he's like, oh, I know exactly what you want. And he, like, skipped into the booth. He's like, no, that's my jam. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So,
sometimes it just
was really
fits.
cute. Yeah, he was very excited. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Well, we are close to hitting an hour now. And what I'd like to do is transition into talking about the current chapter and what's coming up next in Harpy Gee. You mentioned it a little bit before, a little bit of a tease, that a character who is related to Humphrey has emerged in the storyline. A scene that you wanted to do for a while. Can you say anything else about that?
I'm fine with saying it. Anyone who hasn't read the comic yet, sorry. Like, I'm going to talk about some spoilers. It's been like 7 years. I mean, come on. I'm not going to, like, avoid this forever. He has a twin sister named Helicia, and she kind of sets a dragon on the town in the first chapter. She's overworked, she's stressed, she thinks he skipped town and isn't there to support her or help her. And yeah, she basically lets a dragon loose at his birthday party, and it eats one of the guards. That wasn't her intention, but it does eat one of the guards named Dude Bro, who may or may not be based on somebody I know in real life. Like I said, I was going through stuff that year, and part of me was like, I gotta do something for myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Rest in peace, Dude Bro.
Rest in peace.
You weren't with us for so short. Anyway, so she's always kind of been in the background. She hasn't really made an appearance since then. We just like she's shown up in flashbacks. She's really perfect. She's amazing at magic. She's basically the one who takes care of all the extra stuff in the kingdom. Their dad is just kind of home on the throne, doing his own king thing, but she's the one that's sent out to take care of, like, if a monster's out attacking someone's crops. She's the one who has to go out and kiss the babies. She's the one, like, she's always busy. She has her own assistant that follows her around everywhere and tells her what she has to do every minute of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So the current chapter is a year time skip from where I left off last time, because I needed a change of pace. I wanted there to feel like, I also wanted to feel like the characters are now, they're in a good place with each other. They've been with each other for an entire year. They're good friends. They know each other really well. They're there to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
She shows up, and she's gonna try to throw a wrench into everything. I mean, her brother, he has everything that she wishes she could have. He's got the friends. He's got the freedom. Like, he's just at a small town. He doesn't have to deal with any of this extra stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's gonna be some weirdness, and I'm probably gonna update tomorrow evening. I hate to be late on an update, but I still need to do inks today. I need to do color, and I still have
extraordinary time. I think people will forgive you.
Yeah, and I actually still have some notes to do for an episode from last week on the show I'm working on. So if my boss is listening, I am very aware. I gotta drop for myself sometimes. But I love you. But yeah, I'm probably gonna just update probably tomorrow afternoon. Because it's a very simple update, but it's just to kind of give you an idea what's gonna happen on Monday. Is Harpy's gonna, she's gonna probably try to go in her own special way to, she doesn't like to see family not getting along. So, because her whole thing is she doesn't have she's an orphan. She doesn't have any biological family left, but she has been raised by the oldest prince of the elf kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been around some royals. Like, she has the guy who raised her, he has some nieces that are some elven royalty that are brats, but Harpy and those two actually are in a pretty good place right now,
Mm-hmm.
if they like to admit it or not. So I think the fact that Harpy's like, well, like, people come around, I know this, so I'm going to see if I can help with this situation, because she cares about her friends. So
Awesome.
yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I look forward to seeing that. I look forward to reading it. If someone is listening to, because this will be up on YouTube later, if someone's watching this video or someone's listening to this stream right now, but they've never read Harpy before, should they start with the latest chapter or should they start from the beginning?
I would say, I mean, the style, I know the style, I was expecting the art to change as I worked on it, and I wasn't gonna like guilt myself or feel bad about it, because art is a learning process, and it's good to see that you've improved over time. I would say still start with chapter 1. I know the art is really rough.
Doesn't look
but
rough to me.
I think
it looks great.
Thank you. But yeah, it'll give you, I mean, chapter 1 starts really fast, and like I said earlier, because I was kind of redoing the plot, like, in who the characters were. So early on, it's very, very basic.
Mm-hmm.
I think first chapter actually reads really fast. Just to go back to what that exec at Nickelodeon told me, like, She liked the first chapter. She really wanted to see it animated. We originally wanted the pilot to be part of the first chapter, but the problem is that Humphrey shows up so late. And we tried working it out, but it was just a mutual agreement that, like, yeah, we can't do this for the pilot. We can't do this for the short. It needs to be a one-off story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say start with chapter 1. The short doesn't really give anything away, and I structured that on purpose because we were probably going to have to go through focus testing. And so I made sure that the short doesn't have a lot of lore in it because you don't... Like, I wanted to focus on the characters only, and since I only had 3 minutes, that's why it's only Harpy and Pumpkin at the beginning, because the more dialogue you have, it adds time.
Mhm.
Pumpkin doesn't talk, but
Mhm.
everyone loves Pumpkin. I love Pumpkin. So, yeah, I would say watch the short and read the first chapter to get started, and then if you want, you can skip ahead to chapter 5, but you might be a little lost, especially because of the time skip. Yeah.
Can you post a link to the short in the chat for people who are here?
Yeah, let me pull it up really fast. I'm just get the you're gonna hear YouTube noises. My internet's a little slow because I have I'm kind of far from my router and stuff.
Got
'cause
you.
of the way my apartment's set up.
Well,
My
while we're waiting
apartment-
for this, can you still hear me, Brianne?
Oh yes, I can still hear you. No problem.
A question that came up in the last stream. Is Harpy Gee a play on the term RPG?
Yes, it is. And I laugh every time. I do not, it does not offend me if people don't figure it out. Every other month, like there'll be the comment section in Harpy Gee will get, somebody will figure it out, and then there'll be like 10 people after, like, I didn't even catch that, you know?
Yeah.
I have close friends who didn't even realize it for a couple of years, even when I was saying the word. But a thing that's really funny about a thing that's actually really funny internationally about that. So Harpy Gee is RPG, role playing game.
Mm-hmm.
Other languages use RPG too. I've actually had people in other countries message me who are like, English isn't my first language. I'm learning English. They understand the pun right away because of it.
Yeah.
So that's been pretty funny. Anyone whose English isn't their first language, they know it immediately because of that. It's because it's an international thing. And that was something I didn't plan in advance. I will say, if you're starting a webcomic or working on any sort of creative written project or show or movie, title is kind of important. Like, do a Google search. Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be like super well thought out, but like, you know, give yourself an easy way, give people an easy way to find your comic once they find it, you know? Because that's the thing with animation that, you know, people run into a lot is they'll title a show and they don't have the rights to that word or something, or, you know, or it's too similar to something else that's out there.
Yeah.
So I felt kind of like, oh, my comic has a really dumb title, and it's kind of like a stretch too why it's called Harpy Gee, because like Harpy's real name is Gigi Geranium.
Mm-hmm.
And her nickname is Harpy because she saved her kingdom from basically an apocalyptic beast that has almost wiped out the elves before.
Mm-hmm.
She basically screamed at it, and that scared the beast away. So that's why her nickname's Harpy. She's just a little rough around the edges a little bit. So that's why it's called Harpy Gee, but it's also a pun on RPG.
That's awesome. Yeah, it blew people away, like Ren is talking about in the chat. It blew people away last stream. It's great.
Yeah, and you know, I don't focus on it too much in the comic, but Harpy is one of those people that she likes to try a lot of new things. She likes to play a lot of roles, and one of the things that's happening in this chapter is she's taking a lot of odd jobs around town. She's not just working at the item shop. She's working at the tailor's shop. She's working at, you know, she's helping out at the castle. she's doing a lot of odds and ends in different places. So yeah, because that was something that was in my original animation pitch, was that when she's in town, she'll do anything. She wants to try everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
yeah.
awesome. And like you talking about an item shop, the things, the fantasy aspects of this, I'd love to talk to you about it some other time.
Yeah, thanks.
That would be so fun, because just the thought of the fantasy elements of this and talking about that would be so great. But unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I do not want to take all of Brianne's day up. Do you have any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to tell the audience?
I guess with everything that's been going on, and like, with how crazy work is and everything, like, it's okay if you want to do a webcomic and it's just your hobby. It doesn't have to be anything more than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to play Animal Crossing if you have Animal Crossing. It's okay to take 6 months off from your comic and play Breath of the Wild, because sometimes you got to do that. And when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, Harpy's going to go on hiatus. Got to do some research.
Yep.
Research.
Absolutely. That is a wonderful note to end on. So for everyone in the chat, I'm going to repost the !Harpy command. You can read Harpy Gee at HARPYGEE.com. And thank you to everybody. This is the end of the whole event, where this has been another Be Home kind of stream. Thank you to Ren for helping me with the marketing and talking and Twitter and everything. Thank you to Atla for running that recommendation panel. Thank you to Isa for running the SpecFic panel. This has been awesome. Thank you, Brianne, for joining me for this interview. Thank you to Adam and Colin for the interview that I did yesterday. We would like to do another stream. Let us know what you think on Twitter, on everywhere else that we are, Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, Hiveworks, at HIVEWORKS, or you can read Harpy Gee as well as many other great comics at hiveworkscomics.com. I will see you all some other time. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us again, Brianne.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone. We're going to go now. Goodbye.
Are we done?